It's going.
That might make more sense.
Okay.
Only because you can see them.
Frank, can you hear us?
And only because.
Yeah, sure can. Yeah, can now.
It'll just be that, that looks good, because it's got a lake and a river and for fishing.
Well, we could be, they need to put USB in, can you sort
Because
of?
there's Canaldra on
Try, yep. Or is it a
conflict
different computer?
in July, end of July.
Yeah.
Why, I might turn around and say, we've got a heap of people that want to go out there and we pay $100 a head. And you drive it.
Have you a USB connection?
Why not? With a trailer, throw all our fishing gear in.
Is it USB?
I've got a trailer.
Okay, so have you got your presentation, guys?
Yeah, should we just in the memory stick or in our separate laptop? What do you prefer?
We'll start with the memory stick and go from there.
Well, after Gary, I'm here. Is it Frank?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
You-
Mr. For to connect the presentation from GPG.
Okay, you got your phone to your ear though. I thought you were trying to ring one of us.
I'm ringing the important people.
Thank you.
Oh, that means the treasurer.
Exactly.
So you that's me.
You don't, just I don't know. That's
You have like a picture of the one that you're. Yeah, it's fine. It's TMI.
so there we go. Yeah. Looks that.
I'm not to Don's. Thank you for that. I'm sorry about that, everybody. We just, sometimes the system doesn't allow us to do what we want it to do. And thank you for your attendance, councillors. We currently have representatives from GPG in the room. I'll let them do the entry hellos and backgrounds. And once we've got that presentation up, the way this will work is that GPG will do their presentation as to the background and where the project's at. I've provided GPG with a number of questions that some councillors have provided. I've indicated that there's probably more, and I've received a couple more this morning. So that will no doubt be either answered or dealt with by councillors today. Is that, can everyone see that on the screen, the presentation that's there?
Yeah, from us.
That's good,
Oh, we
Gary.
might in a minute. Yes, we can now.
Thank you all.
It's just that they're going to see your notes. I'm not sure if that's better on the flash.
Maybe we can just.
Yeah.
Oh, I can run slide speed if you want.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Just we got people at home watching it as well.
Yeah, there's more than just the councillors in, there's people online. So giving you the opportunity to present that.
I'm just going to introduce the team and then I'll start with you first.
So if you want to go into the middle of the room, then Al will pick up your voice and talk, and we'll give you the appropriate time to do that. Oh, you need to see as well. Yeah. Of course.
That's another level of difficulty.
Al's there.
Speaker will interrupt.
Whining.
We all should be ready to go, so over to GPG to outline. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So, well, we'll start. First of all, good afternoon, and thank you very much to Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, the rest of senior executives of Council for your time and for giving us this opportunity to present and review on our proposed pending gas wind farm. So, well, first of all, I'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Guillermo Alonso. I'm the Development Director at GPG Australia, the proponent. Some of our are based in Canberra, or main office is based in Canberra. In my team, we deal with everything from renewable energy projects origination, planning approvals, land and community grid connection, and pretty much everything until a project is ready to be built and committed to construction. And at that moment, our construction team typically takes over, delivers the project, and after that's done, our operations team will take over. So we're a company which operates the whole life cycle of our renewable energy development from inception till the end of its operational lifetime. Here with me today, I've got my colleagues Supragya and Olu. You guys want to say a couple of words?
Hi, my name is Supragya Sharma. I've been in GPG since 4 years now. I'm the Land and Community Engagement Officer for this specific project. And yeah, I want to introduce us for the meeting.
Yeah, come on. My name is Olusegun Ononaga. Call me Olu. My background is engineering, but I'm into development in GPG. I've been with GPG for almost 2 years now. Like we almost said, we look at everything from projects section, work with construction team, and sometimes even the operation teams when the project is delivered. So basically, we are with the projects all through the life cycle. It's a pleasure to meet everyone and present this, give council an update on what we've been on to. Thank you.
Cornet, do you want to?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Cornet Ryan. Consultants. We are town planners.
Through the, you might just have to come forward like this.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm Cornet Ryan from Tract Consultants, and we are the town planners of the project. So we've been supporting GPG in the project. Yeah.
My name is Charlie from SI Consulting. I'm the truck engineer for the project. I have more than 12 years of experience in transportation of oversized materials and other truck engineering and transport planning matters. So I'll take your questions around the logistics of the site.
Thank you, guys. Right, if we could move to the next slide, please. Like just to talk about this presentation, what we're dealing with today. So we'll do a brief introduction of our company, who we are, where we come from, etc. Know how we been here operating in Australia. Then a second block more focused on the history and the current status of this proposed wind farm project, the Pending Gas Wind Farm project. Further down the presentation, we'll touch on the key aspects that we understand as the key ones following exhibition and engagement with community, etc. So there will be a specific section on the transport impacts, the proposed road upgrades that we're proposing for within this LGA, and a few other matters, and also most importantly as well, what we've done in terms of community engagement so far and proposed initiatives for the future, including proposition for a voluntary planning agreement from our side as well. And we'll leave as much as council needs for Q&A at the end of the session. Having said that, we're very happy for anyone to interrupt us at any stage during the presentation if you need any further clarification or want to make any comments. So moving on to the next slide, please. Well, the next one, actually. So, yeah.
Just before we go, just from logistics, I can't see the councils that are online. So if they want to, I think it's probably better that you go through your presentation first and then we ask questions about that, because I can't see the councillors from my screen at this point in time. So if we go through that, all the councillors are in the same boat.
We probably
try
won't
and go
need it
through
to
them.
be drawn out either. But we know.
That's all right. Okay. So very quickly touching on, I guess, the background and our company and who we are, etc. So Global Power Generation is the Australian subsidiary of GPG, Global Power Generation, which is a company, well, GPG Australia is obviously established here in Australia. Our immediate parent, which is GPG SA, is based in Spain, and ultimately our ultimate parent company is the Naturgy Energy Group. So starting from the top, Naturgy Energy Group is a large multinational gas and electricity utility company. So think something similar to your AGL Energy Australia, something of that size. The company has presence in over 20 countries currently, significant presence in Latin America and obviously in Europe, where the company obviously started in Spain back in the 19th century. And since then, we've been well, through different changes and mergers and corporate movements. We've been operating in, as a company that generates electricity from several sources. Renewables, that's obviously the key focus these days, but we also have other more, let's say, classic or traditional primary sources like oil, gas, or even nuclear in Spain, in some places. Then we have also, the company has electricity distribution networks, retail of electricity as well, and also retail and distribution of gas. So again, presence mainly focused Europe, Latin America, and most recently, probably since the past 10, 15 years, Australia has been a key driver for us. So within Naturgy, there's Global Power Generation, which is a vehicle within Naturgy to develop, own and operate renewable energy assets outside the initial original market, say outside Europe. So GPG, current investments or presence in GPG are based in Latin America and also Australia. So GPG Australia, as a subsidiary of GPG, was established back in 2008. So we already have a significant, relatively long presence in Australia. When our company decided to, saw an opportunity of acquiring a portfolio of wind farms in the country to ultimately continue its development or their development, and ultimately be able to build, own the assets and operate the assets. So our business model is not purely that of maybe the business model of other developers that purely develop and sell and disappear from the picture. We, as part of a large utility company, have in our DNA as well that idea of owning and operating the assets in the long term and obviously making money out of the electricity generation. So moving on to the next slide, that's a bit of a snapshot of our presence in Australia, different projects we have in different stages of development. So those highlighted in yellow, with the yellow pins, those are the ones that are still in the development phase. Amongst those, we have one project in Queensland, which is the Fraser Coast project, which is a hybrid battery storage plus solar farm. Then in New South Wales, we have training yards and potential battery storage proposition associated to our Crookwell 2 wind farm, which is already operational. In Victoria, there's 2 projects in development, actually 3 projects in development, excuse me. Possible battery at Oberon terminal station, another battery storage facility associated to our Berrybank wind farm, and another purely wind farm in Darlington near Morlake. So that's what we have in development. There's a few other things going on. We have a mandate to grow our development portfolio in the country for the next few years. Then there's still a few projects that are being built as we speak, mainly the Bundaberg Solar Farm in Queensland, the Glenellen Solar Farm in New South Wales near Albury, and I think I'm not missing any others in construction at the moment. And the bulk of our portfolio at the moment is a number of projects that are already operational. So starting from Western Australia, we have the Canderdin Solar and Battery Storage Project, which started operations late last year. Same happened with the Ryan Corner and Hopesdale wind farms, starting operations late last year as well in Western Victoria. Then Berrybank 1 and 2 wind farms further a little bit closer to Melbourne, near Eastmore. They've been already operational for 3 or 4 years now. And I guess most importantly and more relevant to this area is Crookwell 2 and Crookwell 3 wind farms. Crookwell 2 was our first project in Australia, pretty much midway between Goulburn and Crookwell. Started operations in late 2018. So that's in a nutshell our portfolio. It's a portfolio of probably 1 gigawatts plus, 1,000 megawatts plus. And if we move, please, to the next slide, we just go straight to the briefing on the Paling Yards wind farm. So as a little bit of a history, and I'm pretty sure everyone here will know about this. Well, we started this Paling Yards, the proposed Paling Yards wind farm project, probably back, or any of us were here actually.
2002.
2002 with the
Thought
initial.
of in
Very, very.
in 1999.
Initial negotiations with host landowners, etc. And well, back in 2014, we were able to finalize and lodge preliminary development application that is now withdrawn. That project had a different design or different physiognomy, if you like, to what we're proposing right now. That proposal, that development application called for a project of up to 55 turbines, so more than we're proposing now. Slightly smaller, I have to say. The commercially available models and the rotor sizes and the megawatt rating of the turbines available in the market at that point in time were different than what we have available right now. So yeah, those were the sizes. Height up to 175 meters, roughly 250 megawatts installed capacity in the best case scenario. The site is pretty much the same. I mean, we haven't really changed that much the site. The hosting properties are the same. The only thing is that we've acquired a piece of land for the substation to connect into the grid. I'll explain that a little bit later. 3,900 hectares total size of the sites. And then we submitted this application in 2014 with the Department of Planning. After, well, some RFIs, etc., from the department, we ended up exhibiting this application at the end of 2014. And then there was a response to submissions and preferred project reports in 2015, once the project or the original application was exhibited. At that point in time, there were probably more uncertainties internally with us, our purpose here in Australia, etc. And there were other projects that were more advanced. And we actually pretty much in 2016, we were able to focus our efforts in the Crookwell 2 wind farms due to the fact that we were successful in the ACT renewal auction at the time. So that meant for us the key to be able to commit to the construction and development of that project. and the little resources we had were pretty much drawn to that project. So painting yards and a few others probably stay a little bit in the back burner for a few years. And then what happened is that during that time, assessment frameworks, guidelines for development of wind farms in New South Wales, and other rules of the game sort of changed, and also the wind turbine technology as well evolved over the years. We saw that there were larger and more efficient wind turbines being available that would allow us to develop wind farms with less turbines overall, potentially the same yield or the same production or even more. So therefore, we decided as well, in consultation with the Department of Planning, to withdraw that application, go back to the drawing board and prepare something new for painting yards, where we were able to be more committed to this project. So if we go to the next slide, please. Basically, we withdrew the original application. We started preparing a new one in late 2020 due to all these reasons that I've mentioned. And we ended up, we managed to finalize our EIS, our environmental impact statement, and submit it to the Department of Planning in September 2023, after a number of iterations and RFIs, etc., etc. As everyone knows, this application was exhibited October till November. There was a small extension of a few days due to some IT issues, we understand, etc. We can touch on that a little bit later in the Q&A. And then after that exhibition period closed, there were a significant number of submissions, 400 submissions. And we started probably from November or so that year to prepare the response to submissions reports, collecting those submissions, classifying and preparing that RTS reports. The reality is that by end of April 2024, we already had ready that package. We attempted to submit it to the department in a couple of occasions. There were further requests for information and further requirements, etc. And unfortunately, we haven't got to the point that the RTS package has been deemed adequate, I guess, for submissions and reception from the Department of Planning. In addition to that, there's been other things happening in the background. We've had to, in terms of especially the haulage route, and Charlie will touch on that a little bit later. There's been a change as well that has delayed us. We have to negotiate and engage with all the councils along the way. So I guess the main, and I know that's been a concern, and we fully understand and appreciate that. There's been a concern about so many months from the end of the exhibition period until we are in a position to launch this RTS package. There's been more things than a reasonable person could see, I would say. So yeah, there's been renegotiation of the haulage route, there's been additional RFIs, and there's been additional, I guess, requirements. But we've been trying hardly to get these done and submitted since May last year. If we move on to the next slide, please. I'd like to, here we're just painting a brief picture of how the original project would look like versus what we are proposing right now. So basically, the number of turbines has been reduced from 55 to a maximum of 47. The site size has actually grown a little bit due to that extra bit of land that we've recently acquired to host the switching station to facilitate the connection to the high voltage grid. There's one extra participating land holding or family, let's call it that way, which will be us in that case. And obviously, the turbine density has decreased significantly. So there's less turbines per hectare, or one turbine per more hectares, let's say 1 to 71 versus 1 to 98, one turbine to 98 hectares. Also, due to this technology evolution of the turbines available in the market, back in the day, we were proposing turbines of a maximum of 4.5 megawatts, most likely 3 or 2 point something or 3 at the time. These days, we're applying for turbines that would just exceed the 6 megawatts mark. We currently our biggest or largest turbine candidate would be a 6.1 megawatts turbine. There's likelihood as well that we may end up choosing something in the order of 4 something. That will become a commercial decision from us in due course. But yeah, there's several models that have been assessed in the application. If and when a development consent is issued, we would have the choice to choose one of those models based on basically the balance between price, production, and factors. The maximum power of output of the facility would be potentially slightly higher than the original, heading up from 250 roughly to up to 290 megawatts, and the turbine height would significantly increase to up to 240, maybe 230. That's the maximum sort of dimensional envelope, which gives us some flexibility to choose between several models available in the market at the time when we need to make that decision. If we can please move to the next slide. Well, that's a geographical context. The red sort of area in the middle of this slide is the boundary of the site. Basically, this is 50 kilometers as the crow flies from the site to Oberon, 60 in the real life when you're driving. And then you can also see other localities and other towns in the area and other projects as well, especially well, 1 and 2. Those are already Appalachian. And obviously the red one, Pellignars, is just on the southernmost edge near the border between. If we could go please to the next one. This is a zoomed in version of the site. This is the currently proposed layout with the 47 turbines. In addition to the turbine locations that you can see in sort of the small yellow dots with a number there, in addition to that, the rest of the wind farm infrastructure would be basically the purple lines, which are the proposed internal access roads that typically have a width or a trafficable width of 5 or 6 meters. There will be as well a centrally located small collector substation, which is that small bit in dark blue near turbine 26. That collector substation basically is the point of convergence of all the internal reticulation networks, so the underground cabling linking all the turbines back to that substation. Then at that substation, basically there will be a raising in the voltage level from medium voltage to 132 kilovolts. And then from that substation, there will be an overhead transmission line, always internal to the site, that would link that substation to the light blue or cyan rectangle in the northeastern part of the site. And that would be a substation ultimately owned or managed by Transgrid as a TNSP, because that substation basically interfaces with the transmission network in New South Wales. Basically, what we are aiming here is to connect to the existing 500 kilovolts transmission from Mount Piper to Bannaby, which is the line that you can go roughly going north to south to the right hand side of this drawing. Okay, so that's the existing line. We would cut into that, and then we would establish that new hub, that new node, if you like, to connect our wind farm or potentially other generation or the generators in the future. So that's in a nutshell the layout. If you can move on to the next slide, please. Well, I'm not going to spend on this slide. This is pretty much what I've described now. The internal collector substation, a small 7 or 8 kilometers transmission line linking that substation to the switching station, which is ultimately the substation which interfaces with the existing transmission network, which is the line from Mount Piper to Bannaby, to one of those circuits, because you may know that that line is actually double circuit. We're just aiming to cut into one of the circuits only. At this stage, I think I'm gonna ask Cornet to take over and continue with the planning approval side of things, so things become established.
Yeah, so you can go to the next slide, thanks. So on the left-hand side of this slide, we just outlined generally the SSD process for state significant applications. And ultimately, the orange block is where we are in the process currently. So we've obviously gone through the scoping and the SEARS process. The EIS was submitted in 2023. Public exhibition was towards the end of 2023, between the 10th of October and the 10th of November, which then got extended for 4 days. And so that's where we are now, is in this process of compiling the response to the submissions. As Guillermo alluded to earlier, there's been attempts from our side to lodge the response, but there's been some clarifiers from the department which has delayed us with that. And so we have drawn up a response document, and based on the changes that has happened within the project, we've also drawn up a amendment report, which essentially outlines amendments to the original EIS, and so that will be submitted in together with the RTS, and essentially then we'll go to the assessment and the rest of the steps that obviously follows that. And so maybe just to touch on some of those amendments in the project. So one of the things we've done within this period is the LiDAR survey for the O'Connell War Memorial. So we'll go into a bit more detail on that a little bit further in the presentation. But that's one of the things that in itself wasn't a change to the project, but it was just to outline the potential impact there. And then there's been quite a lot of consultation with all of the councils along the transportation route, and as part of that, an alternative route option is being considered. And again, my colleague Charlie will go through that in a bit more detail. But that's one of the substantial changes to the project, and together with that, there's been some additional reports that we've had to do to look at that alternative route. So obviously maybe just to highlight then, throughout the period, there's been consultation that's happened with community at different times and in different formats. But obviously there's been substantial consultation with public agencies and different departments as well. The latest community consultation that happened was in May earlier this year, where we were at the library, and again, Subragya will touch on that a little bit later. Maybe just a lot from my side in terms of the response to submissions. We are at a point where we are ready to submit the response, but there's some requirements that at this point is holding us back a bit. And so things like owner's consent from councils that we need, Oberon being one of them, again, that we'll talk to a bit later on. So those are things that obviously from our point of view, we're working on trying to resolve that as best we can. But before all of that it's resolved, we're not in a position to actually submit the RTS because the department won't accept it without that. So that's the an overview of the planning process at the moment. Can go on to the next slide. Thanks.
From John. Okay. Hello, my name is Charlie. I'm the traffic engineer for the project. So, as part of the amendments, one main amendment has been the transport route for the oversized and overmass materials. So, as a matter of fact, the only changes the Castlereagh Highway is no longer proposed to be used. So, in essence, Moji has been a challenge to negotiate some terms with the turbine blades, and we have undertaken additional discussions with Dubbo, and Dubbo actually recommended that we could use Saxo Road because that is something that's been approved for some other renewable energy and wind farm projects. So, after exploring the Saxo Road option just before Wellington, we've identified that the impacts on Saxo Road would be to a much lesser degree than the impacts that will be caused in Mudgee. So that is ultimately what it is in summary. It is a longer route in terms of travel time. In terms of the cost implications, that is, additional cost to the applicant, but this is going to be much lower impact to the community because, Mudgee was quite difficult to negotiate. Although it could be developed, you could develop solutions, although it could be mitigated in somewhat. But I forgot the exact name of the street. But around the school in Mudgee, that left turn is quite challenging. So then we identified that Saxo Road and Dubbo Regional Council, not the Dubbo Town Centre. So Saxo Road option has been much easier for everybody. So that is kind of what it is in summary. So what we propose to do, we still propose to import materials from Newcastle, then travel through Denman Bridge, and then instead of turning left into Castlereagh Highway, we propose that we continue traveling on Denman Highway towards Dubbo. And before we get to Dubbo, we turn left into Saxo Road. We know Saxo Road was recently undergoing some major maintenance activities. We've been talking to Dubbo for more than 10 months now. And it was actually their preference, their recommendation. We believe, well, I think Saxo Road is already open, but if not, it will certainly be open by the time we transport materials. So then we do get through Wellington, and in Wellington, we actually are going to build a new road to bypass the town.
Have they given you permission?
I'm sorry?
Have they given permission?
They verbally agreed, and
Have they signed off on that?
they are about to. I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. Then we propose that we travel through Wellington and we get through Bathurst.
Well,
We bypass. We bypass.
How do you think you can get through Bathurst?
We have till the for those, and we actually have
Any plans?
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Sure. Should we talk about Bathurst in detail?
Bathurst and Oberon is what our interest.
Certainly.
Continue on.
Can I? Okay, thank you. So we propose that we continue towards Orange by using the bypass. Then we travel through Bathurst and we have received owners' consent from council about that. Then we go back to the initially proposed Little Bourne Street and the Auckland roads. So the rest of the route is going to be what was proposed earlier. So I will talk to that in greater detail in a minute, but part of this route, the biggest challenge is going to be the S-curve on Auckland Road, where we propose some upgrades. And actually, that is the reason of our request for the owners' consent. So, yeah. Should I take questions here, Gary, or continue?
Well, there's been a point raised about the Bathurst link, and
Sure.
So
at this point in time, council has yet to provide its landowners' consent, and it was subject to, we have this meeting, and then we discussed it at a council meeting in July. But there is interest from around the table about, well, is Oberon the only council that hasn't provided its landowners' consent for the route?
No.
that's not true.
No, so there's other councils that need to
There is-
provide their landowners' consent. at this
correct.
point.
Bathurst hasn't given you any consent, that you've had a meeting and two people had given you a verbal. But I want to know, has Bathurst given you consent in writing to pass through their LGA?
You do have owners' consent from Bathurst Council to transport.
When did you get the owner's consent?
Can I give you a date? Is that
Yes, but
Can you also give us names of who you spoke to?
because there were only two
And
councillors.
councillors, it's got
Councillor.
nothing to do with us whether landowners consent, like, if landowners' consent's been provided, landowners' consent's been provided, it is up to that other.
Mr General Manager, I had confirmation from two councillors last night that landowners' consent was not given by Bathurst Council.
I would think that if that's the case, that's a conversation for Bathurst Council to take up.
It's a
with
Bathurst
I-
Council issue.
Specific reason.
The,
how?
so it's noted that there is other councils that are yet to provide landowners' consent in
I
this
can
route.
explain that if you let me.
Yep.
So, Dubbo has verbally, so Dubbo has already given us their in-principle approval. Then the next step is the formal owners' consent, and they have agreed to provide that, subject to us finalising consultations with 8 property owners, select group of property owners. So, and I have correspondence around that if evidence is required.
Tom, can I just ask a question?
Of
So
course.
this is probably the document that you had to respond to from Transport for New South Wales for the original route.
Can I see which one?
It's on the portal.
Oh, no, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Where they asked you to respond to
Yeah.
things. And now you're telling us about all the consultations you've had with various councils, but these are really meetings that relate to the new transport route, the one that you showed me when I saw you a few weeks ago, whereas Oberon has never had any change to our route
That is
at all.
correct. Yes.
So I'm a little bit, don't understand. I understand all the other consultations you've had. They're necessary because it's a new route. We're not new. And it popped up in here. So we've never had any meetings with you.
That is correct.
That's a
can ex-
little bit lacking, don't you think?
I can explain to what you.
I know you can explain, but it's
Yeah.
2022 and we're now 2025.
Yeah,
And
good
this is the
question.
first time we've seen you and you're taking us through this, and I understand a new route, but there's a lot of other questions
Mhm.
relating to us as a council.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And so Gary was around, I suppose, a little more over a month ago when we spoke. Until that day, we were advised that we were getting approvals for O'Connell Road. We thought we were getting the approvals from Transport for New South Wales just because that is a classified road. So that has been clarified with us only very recently, that owners' consent are actually a matter for councils, and TFNSW's role in a regional classified road is and being an asset manager. So we have been dealing with Transport for New South Wales about all kind of roads, and those permissions. That is the background. So you may think this is new. It wasn't new for us. We've been dealing with Oberon Road for some time now, and you would appreciate. We developed some concept plans, and you wouldn't be able to develop those in a month, right? So they actually been working on Oberon Road for a long time now, but we were dealing with FNSW, and very recently the renewables department of FNSW said the owners' consent itself has to come from the council. So that's actually probably, that should have been my second point. Apologies. My first point should have been only very recently, according to this, correct me, DPHI explicitly requested us to obtain owners' consent for us to be able to lodge the RGS.
Previously to that, we were working on the assumption
Yeah.
That sort of
Because
a principal consent, let's say.
Yes,
or an
that
email
actually
would
is
apply.
very true. Only until very recently, DPHI would let us lodge the SSDs without owners' consent, but with in principle approval from local councils, and owners' consent would be actually condition in consent. So post approval matter, it would typically has been so far.
Can I make
Yeah.
a comment, Gary?
Yeah, I think that was Frank.
Yeah, can I make a comment? Yep.
Yeah, I've got a hand up too.
With respect, I know you've been talking to councils to the Department of Transport and councils for some time, but you haven't been speaking to the communities, and you've changed the whole transport route and only just disclosed that in the recent time without having public exhibition and comments. So with the original transport route, Mudgee put in a very strong submission against your project. And I guess because of that, you've had to change the direction. We really need a resubmission of this transport route and EIS so that the community can get involved, because the community's in the dark.
I think we wouldn't discard, Renee may correct me if I'm wrong, but we wouldn't discard not a re-exhibition, but an exhibition of the amendment report, let's say, once we present this response to submission report plus amendment report package, specifically focused on this rule change. And I cannot speak for the department, but I think they potentially will want to that as well.
Yeah, I think it's very good to mention that ultimately it's the department that will decide whether the project gets re-exhibition. It's certainly our expectation that because there's been substantial changes to the transport route, there's likely to be a re-exhibition of the project. So yeah, we are aware of that, and that's our expectation.
And just in terms of transparency, council has strongly urged the department to reconsider exhibition of this proposal. So we understand it's a department decision, but to give you guys some transparency in this vote, council as a whole has been actively contacting the department seeking a re-exhibition given the substantial changes to the routes for this particular project. Councillor Hayden.
Question two.
I'll go in, out, that's all.
McKibben said he had his hand up, so give it to him and then I'll.
Councillor Hayden, I'm going to you first.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that you've got a verbal agreement with these other councils.
Written, partly,
Sorry?
partly written.
No, there's no such thing as partly. So you either have an agreement or you have a verbal agreement until such time as a document signed. So anyway, moving on to that, I'm moving on to our roadways. So you want to change our roads. You want to dig away our embankments. Those embankments are sensitive habitats. Okay, you may be not aware, but there's kingfishers and echidnas there. where you want to cut away trees and you swing over to the second and third turn on that mount are koala habitat. You've got nothing written through your EIS in regards to that. Now you've come in here and you're actually stating that you haven't responded to the submissions because you're saying that state agencies are saying that you have to do something else. Well, that's not what's written on the website. So when you read, you've requested to defer responding to the submissions 4 times now, I think it is. And now you're telling us you're going to respond by August. And you're telling us that you're only going to respond if we give your owners permission, because you need that prior to responding to the submissions. That's an incorrect statement, because I don't believe that that is correct. So I don't want to give you owner's consent, because I don't want you changing our landscape and damaging our roads. And I don't think, when I've looked through your economic statement here about the effects to our economy, the assessment that you've got here is 2016. It's nearly 10 years old. Now, you've got that you're going to have 50 workforce out there on the site. You've mentioned the impacts to our health and housing and agricultural economy, but you haven't mentioned the full agricultural economy. So we have truck movements out of this community that you've probably come across whilst you've been here. So we have log trucks that travel on that road, and they're constantly travelling on that road, and they travel probably almost 24 hours a day. And I don't think you understand that. Then we have the impacts of transport that come out of our mills that then have to transport product. They have to transport export log into Bathurst. They have to transport MDF. Some go via Bathurst, some go via Sydney. But that's going to have a massive impact. And you're stating a 15-hour trip. In the kilometres per hour you're going to have to drive, it's going to be close to 20 hours per transport trip from the Port of Newcastle to travel all the way and try and get through our LGA. But you've only mentioned in your application to council 1 bend. You didn't mention the 3 bends. You didn't mention the roundabout on the corner of the O'Connell Abercrombie Road. You also didn't mention the bend at Black Springs and the narrowness of the road that's going out through Porter's Retreat. So there's a lot of things I can see in there that is just conflicting, and the information provided is outdated. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Gary. Look, some of the areas have been partially dealt with. One of the things that strikes me, as you've admitted that this project went into abeyance for a long period of time and now suddenly come back at us, and community consultation, if any ever was conducted, it would have been about at least 2 years ago. If you ask the community, they thought the project must have been canned or gone off, because no one is, until this recent application for Oberon Council to consent to this route, no one was aware that what was happening with this project. As has been said, are you telling us that the only modifications you require to this Abercrombie Road and O'Connell Road are on the Oberon Hill, as is what contained in your request for consent? Is that what I'm understanding? That, as Councillor Hayden said, there are no modifications to any other corners on that hill. There are no modifications at the roundabout in Oberon that goes from O'Connell Road to Abercrombie Road. There are no modifications at Black Springs. Is that what we're understanding?
Has anyone read this?
Yeah.
Through?
Yeah.
So it does talk about things need to be done to the different roundabouts.
But they didn't request that information.
They haven't requested that consent.
I'm just saying, in this report, and I'm not sticking up for it, it does talk about all the various things, but the sticking point is the 3 bends, the mount is not really, you only talked about 1 bend and it's 3.
Well, that's what I'm asking about. There are modifications in that report, don't they? Is consent not required for those other modifications? That's what I'm not understanding.
This is exactly the same question I asked when you guys were in the office. You are seeking landowners' consent to do work on one bend only, and it only relates to that section. But you are proposing to do works along the route that you haven't sought landowners' consent about.
Yeah.
So in your correspondence back to council was just for this one section where you wanted to do work? And why is it that council's only been requested to give landowners consent for this section of work and not the entire works that you're proposing along the road? I think that's the question. Now, whether that's something that you as a group need to go away and in fact seek some clarification on is one thing, because it's certainly the thing that I raised with you when we met, when you asked for that to start with. Because my other issue and question is, when you're undertaking roadworks that will lead to where the towers are being constructed, there'll be roadworks that you're going to have to do for access construction in the same scenario as what we've been asked to provide landowners consent for. So if nothing else, I think that's a concern that's been raised by council, and one for GPG to in fact get some clarification on. And given that this has been asked for from Transport for New South Wales, I think they're probably the first port of call in this regard.
Sorry, Gary, just to be clear, so what you're seeing is,
We want to know why.
Yeah, exactly. If we're, let's say, in addition to those bends there, in Coral Road, if we are proposing elsewhere, just a simple fire stand on the edge of the sealed area of the road, you would require as well a description of that and say, we are requesting your consent for this and that.
So based on the information that we've received from you on behalf of Transport for New South Wales, I cannot see how we wouldn't need to provide that in principle consent when you're asking for on a road that is predominantly a state road. So as the land manager, we should have, if that is the case in one particular instance, it should be the case in all instances. The question I once again asked was, state road has state ownership, regional roads has a 50-50 partnership between councils and the state.
And the sides of the roads are ours.
However, when you are seeking landowners' consent for a works, it is a works within the perimeters of that area, not the entirety of the route. So if you're proposing to do works, how does this work is probably what council is asked.
Simple question is why send asking us to give you permission to do work on our Oberon Mount when there's further work on the Oberon Mount that will require. Do you think by us giving you an approval that just ticks a box and you get approval at any point?
That is, I understand the question, Gary. So look, what I propose to council then is, because there's a technical question, and I think he may have, there may be some confusion around to the extent of the works. So obviously the Old Canal Road S-curve is where the biggest amount of works are going to be required.
But it's not the only works.
That is correct. Yeah, certainly, I agree to that. I think
that's detailed in the reports, right?
That is publicly available information in the report. For example, Black Springs, we need hard stand extension, the roundabout, it is also public.
So why wouldn't you put it all together?
We'll check with TFNSW and DPHI and come back to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Gary, you've got Frank's hand up.
Yeah, there's nothing secret about that part because
It just would make more sense if you came back to us with the whole of the route that affects our LGA and all the works that would require consent.
And then the environmental aspect, you haven't reported on that throughout the mount, the sensitivity.
That will be part of the RTS and amendment report.
Councillor Connor, thank you for letting me know I can't see Frank or Andrew's hand go up. So Frank, you're up.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks for that. Those questions that you provided. I think that the greatest confusion for me is that the beginning of the presentation for some 15 or 20 minutes showed the depth of knowledge, depth of experience working with these projects in 20 countries and 12 or 15 projects in Australia. And here we are discussing, basically, we feel as though you're just trying to fully push this through without due process, and you know better. It's not like this is your first project. You should know better. And we're not just a bunch of country hicks here. We're people who can care about our community, our roads. And in terms of our roads, if I might just digress a little bit, in our development control plan, it's a requirement of developers to make good any road damage that a project may cause. I don't want to change the subject because really this is the most important subject, but will you be making good, repairing any road damage that will occur from this project during construction and transport?
Can I take that? Or please feel free to add anything. So typically what happens is if and when we obtain a development consent for this project, there will be a bunch of different conditions of consent that we need to address before we lawfully can start any kind of construction. And typically, one of those will be that those upgrades we're proposing, etc., will need to be completed to your satisfaction, for example. And then to the point of this latest question, any damages caused by us, by our transport, etc., as part of the construction works, will need to be fixed. And how this works is that the consent authority, in this case, the Department of Planning or the IPC or whatever the top of road, that's the case, will write in that consent that we need to prepare a traffic management plan, a TMP, in consultation with council or any other relevant road authorities. And in that traffic management plan, typically there will be an obligation for us to conduct prior to construction and dilapidation report, establish the baseline condition of that road, and based on that, if we damage something, we will have an obligation of fixing that, patching that, wherever the case is. But there's a baseline condition established prior to anyone comes here to do any construction works, and then obligation to repair based on that. Charlie, not sure if you want to add something else, but
No.
TMP is very important because it will council's input and council's, I would say, approval or satisfaction will be a key matter before that TMP is considered, and the department endorses that for us to comply.
Can I just ask, there will be damage and you're saying that you will repair it. And generally that's at the end of the project. But if we have a massive fail and our roads are very, we only have very direct routes that are used and heavily used. So if we had a massive fail, will we have to actually just wait until the end of your project, or will you be able to be brought in, stop what you're doing? Because it can happen.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it just can't sustain a long term.
Council, there will be a strategy in that TMP where, let's say, if something is, I don't know, a massive pothole or something like that, there needs to be an immediate reparation or restoration work, etc. I mean, we've had that in.
Okay.
Well, we're happy for.
Do you know what I think really wrong is that we're sitting here asking you questions like this now. You've done no community consultation. Your EIS had a very big, elaborate community consultation plan that you were going to undertake or had undertaken, which was a little bit, it was cut and paste from various places. But, we're talking to you about a project that we should have known about from day one. The only time we ever knew about it and I went to it was at Black Springs when you did that first consultation. After that, and then you come to town a few weeks ago way past an EIS submission. So the community has got, there's nothing for them to do except just listen to it. They don't have no option but to wait perhaps for an independent planning commission to make some sort of sense to it. You've never done any consultation with a community in O'Connell where those trees are. I know you've done a study, don't worry about that. You have never, ever come into that community and talk to those people about the route and how you're going to use it. That's extreme. You've got no social license. And community consultation is something that is really key to any project. The other proponents, Tag Stromlo, they're in here quarterly. They don't love our questions, but they sit, they present and answer. ATCO in Bathurst had a pumped hydro. They came into the communities and suffered the big questions. You guys have done nothing. And now you're coming here going, can you give us landowners consent for this bit? But a whole years, we haven't had any communication with them. 23.
That's debatable, but we'll touch on
It's
that.
more than debatable.
We'll touch on that.
It's appalling. You have ignored the guidelines that the Department of Planning outlined for you to do. You have absolutely just, we don't need to do that. And you think that we should go, that's okay for our community, we'll just tick it off and we can go up and down. It's unacceptable.
I've got Councillor McKibben first, Andrew, and then I've got
Councillor McKibben and
Luke.
Councillor Lee.
Andrew.
Thank you, Gary. Noting the issues that have occurred in Blaney with Flyers Creek, are you prepared to put at least a $10 million bond in place for damage that may be caused to the roads on the basis that Blaney has been arguing with the Flyers Creek developer for over 8 months for repairs to roads, even though an original dilapidation report was done? That's the first part of the question. The second question is, and you may be getting to this, you're asking us to approve a transport route, but you haven't yet indicated to this council or to the community as a whole what you're intending to offer up in a voluntary planning agreement. And I know you've got on your topics VPA, but there has been no proposal by you in any sense about a VPA, whereas Stromlo Tag has made some initial suggestions as to what they might seek to put in a VPA, but we've heard absolutely nothing from you. So are you paying sort of 5% of your maximum output per year plus an upfront of 20 million? What are you proposing?
We're very keen on putting on the table a draft EPA to start discussing that. We actually sold this meeting for quite a while, and we're very grateful that we finally made it. So my colleagues probably will touch on that a little bit later, but we're in a position to put something on the table, a proper draft to start discussing. Council is amenable to that with specific figures, etc., etc. Regarding your previous question about bonds and for repairs, etc., etc. Look, again, I insist on what we've said before about the conditions, or the commitments in the traffic management plan. If the consent authority, also with your feedback, considers that a performance bond or something like that needs to be put in place, we'll need to abide by that. We'll need to comply with that. Something that we haven't really done in the past, we just complied with what the TMP negotiated in consultation and to the satisfaction of council says, which means repairing things and so on. Reviews. If it's an expectation for a bond as soon as it's reasonable or commensurate with the amount of potential damage, etc. Also, that if the consent authority mandates that as a condition of consent.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
There's been a lot of brilliant proposals put forward to you guys from our councillors. This is a statement first. I would like to see everything that, thankfully this is all on tape, so that you can put every issue that we've brought up this afternoon, and you give that to us in writing, please. We've asked you the questions, we haven't got a lot of answers, so I'd like you to give that to us in writing. Again, it's on tape. Now, the other thing is I want to talk to you about is you said you've given owner consent. You're looking for owner's consent. Now, I know a lot of people in this district, and I love this district. There's 150 people out there that have signed a no-go. You have no right to come here, right? We also have a petition here, just in the Blue Mountains area here, 15,000. I know that 23,000 in the Yet Home have signed these petitions. Now, as human to human, how are you guys dealing with the devastation that you're causing this society? This society, I can talk the whole society, with the devastation you guys are causing, or the devastation in this area. Yesterday, I had people cry to me. I had people yesterday. They don't know whether they can extend their farm, they can build, they can what. So, do you have social workers working for you visiting all these people you guys visited? So can you please give me an answer to that? And the other first issue I brought up, can you give us that in writing, please? But the main issue that I'm concerned about is the thousands of people in this district that are having their life devastated. Can you answer how you're dealing with them? Thank you.
Is it specific to this project?
Sorry, for this project. Yeah, no, we're concentrating on the hailing yards with GPG today.
Struggle with that concept of devastation, but I mean, we talk to every, we've talked to every single neighbor, not only our host landowners, but everyone that might be more impacted by having a wind farm in their boundary or nearby, etc. We've got a number of neighbor benefit sharing agreements in place already.
Yeah, well, I've got 150 that signed, no way. Straight out there.
Should obviously let us know who.
Yeah, 100%.
Devastated, we would be happy to talk to them, of course, but the relationship with the most immediate neighbors are pretty good and reasonable.
You still haven't answered the question, how do you deal with people crying to me and other people in this community of the devastation you are causing? You haven't said it. You have social workers visiting these people that are out in this district. They don't know what, they've come here, they've spent money here, and then next minute, oh, we've got you guys at our door. So I want to know what you are saying to them. Do you have trained psychologists to deal with the devastation you're causing here? That's a question.
We're not
You
doing
don't.
that.
No.
We're just simply talking
Yeah, well,
reasonably to people that are impacted and neighboring.
you're talking to different people we are.
Probably. Happy to get those contact details.
Yeah, just for some clarification, it's not just the nearby neighbours that are impacted by this, it's the entire LGA and further local government areas that are quite distressed by the changes renewable energy projects are making to our landscape. I'm 7th generation local. Now, my forefathers will be curling up in their graves. Other people have been here for generations, and we don't want to see our countrysides, our farmland, everything destroyed. But that isn't the main issue here. One of the major issues is that you're going to tie up our roads for over 24 months. You think 24 months. And the economic impact that is going to have to our community, the impact it's going to have on health services, housing. You're having your economic analysis statement that you've got here on your site that was commissioned in 2016 that is well out of date. Nothing is correct in there anymore. Hospital services in Oberon are minimal. We only have an MPS. Hospital services in Bathurst suffer. Then you've got to deal with Orange, and then everyone goes to Nepean. Transport services in this LGA, we have over 5,000 B double truck movements in this LGA now, with $63 million a year in goods carted that this community relies upon. How are you going to prevent impact to what is currently happening? You come in here, you actually can't give us answers. What would you guys do if we say, no, you cannot traverse through our LGA, find another route to your location? What would you do then? Just give me a little bit off the top.
We need to talk.
Yeah, but we can legally do that. You know this.
Yeah, and then no project will be developed. We have such a
And there you go. But we don't care about that issue. We care about this issue.
So I'm just mindful that we're going over and over.
No, I just made that
I
statement. It's
know.
a totally different one, Gary.
And it's just we finalize the presentation.
That's where I'm going to, because I think council has made it very clear their concerns in this regard.
Yeah.
And it is for GPG to answer those questions that have been asked in that regard. I do have Councillor O'Connor with one last question before we move on, but
I'm very sure.
oh, sorry. I have got Councillor Alvarez who hasn't had a question yet.
Last one now, if you want, Gary.
I've gone in, out, so I'll go in. Frank, got the floor.
Thanks, Gary. And I'd just like to, I guess, follow on from our mayor's discussion regarding the roads. What GPG have to understand is we're a small council. Our funding is very restricted with roads. We're, as Gary says, we're squeezing the oily rag, but that oily rag has run dry. And as Councillor Trembath has said, we can't afford any repairs to roads. We need to sort this ASAP. We need to sort it now. Our priorities, you have to listen to our priorities. We need to understand that even before a VPA, and a bond is critical, because in the context of the Flyers Creek, which is just down the road in Blaney, 37 towers, $5 to $10 million road damage. We need the bond, and we need that. We need you to be able to come to us now and say that's happening, to commence to have a conversation with you. You're the guys with deep experience. This is your game. This is your playing field. You know how to get these things through without spending any money. Well, I'm telling you, our council cannot put up with this. You need to come to us.
That's a very good point. And look, I'm not going to suggest here that we will just go directly and say, okay, we can offer this bond, but I would definitely suggest or encourage council, perhaps write, when the time comes, to write to the department for, I don't know, requesting some conditions of consent, etc., etc. I will encourage that to be put forward directly to the department so that they can integrate that as a condition of consent. Yeah, opposed to that, and I think that's only fair, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the overarching problem with this is that, you know, we all read newspapers. You've had these wind tower projects for sale off and on over the last couple of years, and then we read in the paper that there was a couple one being Paling Yards that you pulled off because no one was interested in buying. I mean, we need certainty where we're going with this project in terms of, you know, who's going to pay. Is the money set aside? When we read in the paper that you're for sale, it doesn't give us great confidence.
Sorry, who's selling Paling Yards?
4 billion.
That's, oh, sorry, I thought it was related because I've never.
Yeah, use it for sale. You'll be for sale.
There was some, yeah, I know there was a question, yeah. There was look, this is something that came from naturally shareholders, one of the parent company shareholders, of something several levels above us. A couple of years ago, they decided to test the market, see how much the portfolio would be valued. There was nothing specific on the Paling Yards, there was whole portfolio. Sometimes they've done that, but it was mainly to make sure that we were creating value and how the portfolio was valued. That operation, that exercise was, I can guarantee, was abandoned time ago. You may have read as well in the papers that operation got shelved, and as far as we know, as far as I know, at our level, can confirm that there's nothing like that going on for our portfolio. That doesn't mean that in 2 years' time, someone decides that may happen. There may be a new shareholder, etc. But in saying that, our period as a long-term asset owner still there, and we are not the kind of developer that develops something and sell and disappear. In saying that, I understand your concerns about, oh, who's gonna decommission this, who's gonna put it on through that. Look, again, I reiterate, we're happy if council wishes for this department, this to be integrated as a condition of consent. And touching on the decommissioning as well, and touching on one of the other questions that were sent to us yesterday, we are contractually obligated to decommission the infrastructure that we install on the land of our host landowners. That's in the contract we have with them. Secondly, we will have a strong condition in the consent as well, by which we need to decommission that in 12 months or whatever the period is after the end of the operational life of the project. And thirdly, as well, we also financially committed, because we are financially responsible in this company. When we model a project, when we do the financial model of a project, before we escalate that to our board for approval for committing construction, we put all the cost items, all the cost inputs, CapEx, OpEx, any other costs. The commissioning cost is something that we also allow for that in that model. And if the internal rate of return of the project wouldn't work with that cost, there will be no project. So that's something that we commit and allow for as part of the funding that we require for the project. So I can confirm that.
For you, Tony?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you can have up to a 6 megawatt tower, okay, which can be up about 240 metres in height. The blade will be a lot bigger than the 66 metres that.
Not necessarily. That particular turbine model comes with a split. That particular model of turbine comes with a split blade configuration. Therefore, there's two pieces. The longest piece would be 66, and the other would be 12. So only in that scenario, yeah, we would have a bigger rotor,
Yeah.
but the blades come into pieces.
Okay.
So that, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's the maximum theoretical dimension element we're working with.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be using that. But once we run a request for proposals process with the different turbine suppliers, we'll make a decision on what's the optimal one for this project. And we may end up with that one, or we may end up with something slightly shorter as well. So this is the worst case scenario we're talking about.
What's your predicted life for it, average? What's the predicted lifespan of a turbine?
Typically 30 years from the farm. Yeah. 30 years.
Just one more thing. I know you're going to go through more presentation, but
We don't have to.
like the big thing is like what we talked about. You need to go back to your transport plan, determine all of the areas where we need to give conditions of consent, and you need to explain to planning that we're a long way away from getting it because you have not done anything. You have not engaged with us. So we're sort of a long way away from understanding the total impact of this project into our LGA because you haven't done your job. So it's up to you to talk to planning and not for us to beg, oh, could you put that in the conditions of consent, maybe some extra money or whatever. That's up to you. You're the developer. You can put that in, you can do whatever you wish, but the big thing here is you need to explain to planning why you're sitting here now asking us to give conditions of consent to one part of the mount, and we hardly know anything about the rest of the transport route. And I'm not sure if you agree with me, but it's too soon for us to go to July and say, oh, yeah, you can do it. We don't have enough information.
Okay, just one thing I want to ask, and I'll let you clearly answer me. Just one thing. If Oberon Council say, no, you cannot come through that direction, and no, you cannot tie up our roads or pass through our LGA to get to that location, what would you do? Clearly.
That's
Just one clear answer.
Yeah, so I can certainly respond.
Oh, go on, lads.
I think Department of Planning is going to make a decision based on your response.
Okay,
And we would probably need to rethink as a country whether we have a proper road network as a country, not as a state, not as an LGA, whether we have a proper road network, which is a third world road network.
Well, I can reply to that if you like. Yes. So you guys are using coal, you're using scrap steel, you're sending it to China to be melted down by coal, and then you're saying, and it also needs to be run by a power station down the road with coal running to your turbines for your electronics, etc. And then you made a comment, oh, do we want to have this a third world thing in Australia? Come on. So the reality is, point I'm saying is, you are using coal, you are digging up from here, you are destroying our economy because you're everything's been made in China. We're subsidising you guys, the high power prices. Okay, so wrong. Tell me if that's wrong.
No,
Where are you making the turbines?
They're not making.
They bring
Yeah,
it
we're
on.
not taking coal.
They what?
They buy
Yeah,
them.
they acquire turbines.
So
Well, it's still.
We acquire turbines.
Can we just get off
Just,
that,
can we just?
just get off that argument? One thing that was spoken about earlier, when I asked the same question, what would you do if this council said, no, do not pass through this area? And you said we might have to rethink the project, correct?
Us and potentially
Right.
many others.
Thank you. That's all I want said. Thank you. And that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
I do have
You've got two more.
both hands up.
Councillor O'Connell was
It's good to
first.
see that I've got some control over this. Let's move on. We've got 2 more questions and then
Councillor O'Connell was first, then Mayor.
Councillor Frank, Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks, Gary. Just picking up a point that was made by GPG a few moments ago regarding decommissioning. We tend to try to see what's going on in other areas. We have Stromlo do presentation to us. The one big issue that all developers try to run from or hide from is decommissioning. And your statement was similar to the one that most developers provide, that it's in the contract that they'll be decommissioned. But our DCP requires a bond to remove the towers at the end of their life. That's the only way we can be assured that this will happen. Would you be prepared to provide a bond for this? Otherwise, we have no security in that they will be removed at end of life.
There's been some talks around the industry about this, not only here, also in Victoria, I believe, about, I guess, creating a regime by which proponents contribute to a bond or fund or something for decommissioning. Nothing's really being mandated formally. We still keep our position, but again, there's several layers of protection for this. One is our own contract with the host landowners. Second, there's a condition, the strictness will be condition about this in the future, whenever it comes development consent or in previous development consents that we've obtained for the projects. And thirdly, I mean, if we don't comply with that, the state of New South Wales could come against us because we didn't reach the permit. The host landowner could sue us as well. And thirdly, the internal allowance of budget for that decommissioning activity as part of our business plan for the particular project that we're talking about, for this or for whether. So
Yeah, thanks very much. But this is thanks very much. But this is the problem.
Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, I understand.
No, the problem. What I'm going to say is the problem is that your statement regarding the industry discussing having a pool of funds, the industry acknowledges that it's going to be a huge problem down the track, that there's not the money set aside, that each developer can sell their project at the end of life and walk away. We're asking for our community, our DCP requires a bond. Pure and simple. You can't hide behind, look, we're discussing it with other members of the developing community. You can't sort of hide from this.
It's, sorry, Councillor, if I may just reiterate what Gemma said. I just came up during our conversations in the open there as well. I'm not sure the name of the person, but somebody actually walked to me and asked the same question. And I told them that as a host land owner, if a developer comes to you and there is no written contract with you that at the end of the lifespan of this project, this is how it's going to develop. Don't sign it, don't sign it. So just reiterating what Gemma said, there are layers of contract, and again, the renewable energy industry in Australia is probably, compared to other industries, probably young. I understand the resentment towards the industry. Mistakes in the 90s, mistakes were made and all that. But the fact of the matter is, there are layers of protection for the host owner, for the community, in terms of the commissioning. And Gemma has just mentioned as well that if council likes, you can push with the department as well that they should mandate something in that regard as a condition of consent, So council can as well go ahead and do that. So I'm just trying to reiterate that, and I think it was Councillor Frank that asked that question. Do you mind if I answer? In terms of, Charlie will probably walk through this as well. You mentioned that we are experienced considering the amount of projects that we've had, and that is true. And from experience as well, I can say to a large extent that we are not going to devastate the community. This is what I mean. Say, for example, there was a project in Victoria where it was part of our work with the community that between this time and this time, we don't want to see your vehicle on the road. And we comply with that. So this is part of why one of the things where we are, and look, I understand the lapses in the documentation from 2016 and all that. All that can be worked on and updated, but we are not developing and going away. We are going to be here for the lifespan of the project. And if we can't sort of get the loose social license, how do we operate in that year? So I'm just trying to reiterate what everybody has said. And so Brian will come and present on the community initiatives as well, that it is our practice as GPG to work with the community, not just because we want to get the project done, but because we are here long term. It is in our best interest to be in good terms with the community because we are going to be here long term. So in terms of transportation, when the time comes, those are the things we can work out that, okay, I can't remember the name of councillor you mentioned about. Alan, sorry.
It's been 23 years and you've been here 6 times.
The other thing is, like we said in the introduction of the project, at some point, the project, sort of stopped because of every other thing that was happening. So it's not until recently, maybe 2020.
That's why the community has no faith.
So I'm just trying, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that it is in our best interest as well to work with the community to see what works for you and try as much as possible to accommodate it, to actually contribute to the community and not devastate the community. So if Charlie wants to continue.
So just to wrap this up, I think you're very aware of the concerns that council has in this regard. By asking council to provide letters to the department to add conditions, the concern from the council is that they're not listened to. So the reason why these questions are asked to the developer themselves is that if the department don't listen, the developer does, and they implement their self-conditioning around these types of things. Once again, something for you guys to consider moving forward. But just mindful of the time, and I really
Gary,
want to let that.
Gary, I have a hand up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Your call.
thank you, Gary. I don't want to prolong this, but we've heard many platitudes. The mining Department of Mines has come out and said 81% of mines in New South Wales that said they were going to be rehabilitated properly have not been. There are some guidelines re decommissioning. However, there is no certainty that you or any potential purchaser of this wind farm will not go into liquidation and there will be no funds to decommission. A bond provides protection in that event. I think the current amount is 400 to 500,000 per turbine for decommissioning, but that does not allow for the increased costs of construction that have occurred or will occur over 35 years. As you will appreciate, over the last 3 years, there's been a huge increase in construction costs. So how are you going to accommodate for those increases in cost and provide protection for us in the event that a future purchaser of this project could go into liquidation? It seemed to me as suggested that a bond is the only means, and it has to be escalated each year in accordance with the construction increase in costs in CPI index.
Well, then true.
And you, yes, you say that we can put a submission into the department, but you should be offering in your submission to us and in your comments to us to allay our fears by proposing things that are better than what the minimum requirements is, as Squadron has done in the Wellington area.
Just pay this comment.
Action speaks louder than words. Action speaks louder than words. So that's all we're asking. We're clearly in action.
So it comes back. All right, do you want to continue to try and?
How much time do I have? So according to that, I'm going to prioritize. Let's
now only going an hour and 51 minutes. Yeah.
I really have to get to Bathurst.
Yeah, that's fine. There's been many questions asked in this regard. So if you want to continue on.
Well, conscious of time, let's talk to the Anzac War Memorial. Let's play that footage because that is the highest material that is going to be transported from Newcastle to the site. So that is going to have the largest impacts to those trees. There is misinformation around us potentially cutting or removing trees. None of that is true.
That's in your documentation. In your documentation that you're going to cut, possibly remove. I've got the documentation that states that.
That is not the case. Let's play the footage and let it speak for itself. That is the simulation for the highest oversized material. And that is 3D LiDAR technology. So there is no technology that is more accurate than this one.
Yes, there is. A truck with the component on it.
Should we not do this before the truck comes?
Charlie, as you know, there are huge concerns about this. And that's why I keep saying you have not done anything in the community to allay their fears. So even though you say there's misinformation there, no one has come, no one has spoken to them, and that's where.
Look, you hit a tree.
No, that's just horrible. I haven't got a Game Boy next door.
Many people were really thankful to us when they saw this and were explaining.
But they don't have an opportunity to submit again based on you doing a LiDAR study or anything like that. It's just, you've done this after the event and tried to go to Veteran Affairs with it and, you know, the impact to the trees. The way you've gone about it is all wrong. You know, it's just,
How's another truck getting past you there?
They won't.
How's the trucks gonna get past you?
They won't.
Yeah, you're in the middle of the road, so where's all the other trucks getting?
They won't.
They don't.
Stop. That's the what happens.
What's the red mean?
It means it's gotta get chopped.
The red means it's touching water.
Oh,
Charlie, what time of year was that study done? Can you tell me what month?
Yeah, I can. Definitely.
You don't have to tell me today, you can just pop me a note to say
I'll
when it was
give you an
done.
exact date.
And the community quite eager to see this, so you are able to give this to me on a USB. They have community meetings, it can be shown, and they can ask their questions.
I'll be very happy to connect.
Does GPG have their own website? They have,
Yes.
is this information available on that website?
No.
Because I think that it's not up to council to in fact
No.
provide that
If it's on the
information.
website,
But please, I think that it's potentially a good thing for GPG to have as something on their website to show this, and we can look into that. Like others, we're not a conduit for you to make your decisions through the community. It's up to you to,
you're the
to
ones that are
present
meant to
that.
go.
and I think that in that instance, this is something similar to what we would say to others, to say, it's not up to council to spruik that, it's up to you to provide that. And I think that their website, like keeping it removed from a councillor or from council per se, because council hasn't made a decision on where it sits at this point in time.
How long did it take you to do that 2.5 Ks? Because you're doing probably 15, 20 kilometres an hour going along that site. So how long did it take you? In time frame, because that's how long log trucks have to stop before they get to their destination and other traffic. And that's going to be the whole road.
Yeah, so that's around, I believe, 950 meters. Should be less than 3 minutes.
Let's call it 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer at 60 pace an hour, or even less.
Well, you won't be doing 60 Ks an hour through there.
No, but sensitive trees will be swallowed. That is correct. So that's why conservatively said.
But then you've got to go all the way along that road and you're going to have all the traffic impacted, all the log trucks. Where are they all going to be stopping?
Those are part of what consultation. So once this gets to that point, those are the things you have to work with the council or with the whoever is going to be using the road. Once like that. For example, I know for sure that
24 hours a
Also-
day. No, but the trucks are on the road 24 hours a day.
I'm sure there will be opportunity to work.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Gary. Just with regard to the O'Connell trees, I'll just back up or support what Councillor Trembath has said. This is a memorial. We're not seeing this as your project and your project only. We have another project coming behind, maybe in front of you. Those turbines, those wind tower bases are 25% bigger. We're looking at a cumulative impact on these trees. You think of your project only and pushing it through and thinking, well, you know, we're only going to look, it'll be okay. What I've heard is that you're going to tie the trees back with a pink ribbon, and that's how you don't have to cut anything. I mean, the community is so lacking information on this, but it is a memorial. And we're looking at not just GPG, we're looking at Stromlo's project and the impact on those trees overall. That you don't do that because you're just trying to push this through. So we'll have to look at this from a whole different angle, from a whole different light. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, if they're planning larger turbines, there may be a physical limitation. There may be a point where blades or tower sections may not be able to go through. We'll try to propose something that is commensurate with the canopy, the vertical clearances that are available. If someone else plans to transport a load of 7 meters tall or 8 meters tall, yeah, that's a different category.
You might
And
get
that's
big no.
definitely, and maybe they will damage those
Maybe
trees.
we'll say no.
We're trying to, of course.
but we're trying not to get to that. That's why we are back. So I'll just see what's ahead of us.
Sure. And these guys, remember, these guys are probably 4 or 5 years behind us. Well, potentially. Yes.
So actually, I believe we missed a slide. So let's take a step back because we haven't spoken to this one. So I'll just quickly wrap up. We are working with Dabo to get a bypass road constructed. So, and it was Dabo's preference out of number of options. We agreed with them. We have spoken about the war memorial now, and in a minute, I'll talk to you about the S curve. So let's quickly move on to the next slide. One more, please. So, well, we've seen the simulation. So let's wrap it up quickly. That is up to 10 trees and branches and leaves of up to 10 trees may be impacted. So there's no cutting and removing any tree. So let's move on.
Just to add on that, like,
Sure.
General Manager suggested we do a video to our project specific website. We can upload the report related to the LiDAR survey that we have, which has like proposed mitigation measures.
Let's do that. So these are exact pinpoint of which trees or which branches actually may be impacted. So trees are numbered from 1 to 4 in that image. In the next slide, tree number 5.
Just so you know, because that's a living war memorial, there are very strict guidelines around any work that can be done on those trees. They are protected.
Yeah.
And
No, they're
a particular arborist, it's not just and you can't damage them and then ask for forgiveness after. It just won't fly.
Naturally, we mentioned that, but we also engage with veteran affairs, and we committed to engage an arborist as well.
Yeah.
When the time comes to
because they always grow. So let's wait for the arborist to come. And then trees 6 to 10 are in the last image. So let's move on to the next lines. Right, we want to quickly.
Yeah, like I mentioned, there are few mitigation measures listed in the report itself. Like you suggested, we had a consultation with the Veteran Affairs after we received all the submission, I understand. And we presented this video as well as report to them. They obviously suggested an arborist to be consulted, and we have mentioned that we are happy to get advice from them, like a local arborist that they would to consider, so that they can have a look on the trees and advise according to the.
But you'd have to get this redone at the time of when you wanted to enter that avenue. You can't use modelling from a
that's
time
right.
because that modelling could be out of date. Trees change, you know.
Yeah.
So like what happens then if you've got
We'll ask the arborist. A good point. We'll ask the arborist about their growth split. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can also consider, as in we had an internal discussion about that obviously the videos or LiDAR survey was done last year. Considering when we reach that time when we actually bring the blades, the tree might have grown up or changed it. So we can commit to something like a couple of months before the construction.
So all the risk is to the community, not you. Yeah, if you have to, you break the branches, whatever, it's all over. And that's another bond that the community would expect to be in place because they're 100 years old.
Yes.
Next year.
And it's not just that,
So
they've taken a lot of effort to keep the trees alive. The trees actually were suffering a while back and
That's okay.
But the thing is, you aren't listening to the seriousness of anything around our community at all. Whether it be a tree or an animal, or cutting a gum tree or digging the side out of the bank, you're not understanding. We don't want that done.
Okay, let's move on to the final slide of mine. So that is the proposed geotechnical and civil engineering works for the S-curve on O'Connell Road. We have been talking to for a long time now. We've been in consultation with TFNSW, and we understood that now, only very recently, actually, because Gary might remember, as a classified road, we just never knew we would be. The level of, we didn't appreciate council's involvement in this because it's a classified road, but now that we know, here are the plans. And TFNSW provided some commentary. We are going to address those and move forward.
Sure, Chairman, that we can provide the whole package with every description of every single location.
Oh,
also what
yeah, I'm going to do it.
rates, even if it's a small size.
And equally, commentary from Transport for New South Wales, because they are the one who's asked you to get landowners' consent from us as to what those works would include, or if they are in fact considered works. My other thing is that in your response, what other councils are yet to provide landowners consent? Because you just said to us that you can't lodge this until you have landowners consent from all the other councils. We would like to know who those councils are. I think it's been very clear from council as to their concern.
Yeah, just to prevent back and forth.
Yeah. But I think we've gone over this enough to warrant us moving forward onto the next one.
Excuse me, if we can get an answer to that, we do, despite the fact that Bathurst does concern us. So who, can you give us the names of who you spoke to and got consent from the Bathurst City Council?
It hasn't gone to a meeting to get consent.
Well, they said they've got verbal.
Just verbal, right in writing.
You got it in writing. Contradicts what
You have not. Stop lying.
That's what I'm getting at. Can you give us on paper, in an email or something, who you spoke to in Bathurst that's given you consent to drive through Bathurst?
Council, it's final, but we need to concentrate on what's going on. It is a matter for that particular local government area if they deem that there is or isn't consent.
But if, with respect, it does concern us, because if they let them through, we've got to deal.
No, you've been asking of your own landowners' consent at this point in time. I want to do that.
Yeah,
so
okay.
we need to source it. So noting your concerns, I think they've noted it.
Who you spoke to in Bathurst City Council. Thank you.
Continue
Engage
on.
consent, verbal.
Sorry?
Engage verbal consent. We need to know that.
They've indicated
In writing.
Yeah, it's not,
You'll give us
not,
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's verbal, okay.
Clarify for the third time.
Do you want to continue on just to finalise?
As far as the traffic and logistic matters go, this is it from my end, but I'm happy to take questions.
I think that for the last hour and a half, you've been taking questions. So
Okay, that's my role.
you're well and truly. Exhausted. All I can ask is on behalf of the council, if they've asked questions where they have been taken on notice, some response to that would be appreciated.
Yeah. Let's go with the last bit of the.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. Right.
Yes.
Probably we can skip this. It was just, it hasn't changed since we have lost the PINS. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge.
Please don't, just, we don't.
Yeah, that's right. I don't mind skipping this because we hear that there has been some concerns about lack of community consultation around. And the comprehensive list of what we have done pre and post exhibition will be as a part of response to submission. So we can skip this one also. So the main idea for, as in obviously letter of consent and all the traffic concerns, we thought that we would need to start a conversation for voluntary planning agreement. Along with that, we have proposed few other community initiatives for the project. Firstly, with the neighbor benefit sharing program, which is mainly focused on the nearby neighbors who are highly impacted visually and noise, but they are within noise is within the limitation for the neighbors. So basically, the eligibility for the neighbor benefit program is within 3.5 kilometer buffer from the closest turbine. We managed to sign few neighbor agreements as well, considering the impact. It's a voluntary planning, it's a voluntary agreement. So we are happy to receive if anybody is interested. And we have also considered, let me add, we have also considered exceptional case outside 3.5 kilometer buffer for the properties who are highly impacted, and consider a few factors if we could provide some initiatives for the potential impact, and they have signed some agreement to share some benefit as well. We can still have this discussion throughout, and if even after construction starts, and maybe some owners would like to decide after they see the project up and running, if that happens in nearby future, they can approach to us if they are interested on this particular program. So next one is the voluntary planning agreement. I understand we have mentioned few points before while Guillermo was presenting as well. We can think of a number or initiatives that we are thinking for this particular program and present a draft agreement to the council, and happy to receive a suggestion when you would like to see that, and present. We haven't decided on a number or a, like per megawatt basis on the project itself. So that is some of the initiatives we are thinking of. Normally, this agreement and what we have done in other councils, it depends on council's preference as well. Normally in few councils, a committee is formed, including some councillors, community members, as well as a couple of representatives from our company to manage the annual fund, and people would apply for that fund on an annual basis, and the committee would decide priority of the project and provide the fund. But it at the end, it depends on council whether they want to manage that or not. There are other councils as well who doesn't want to be involved on this, and a separate committee with only the community members and a couple of representatives from our company to be part of this committee and manage the fund. So we can start the conversation as per council's advice whenever it's suitable. And obviously the other benefits, we are currently exploring other community initiatives like sponsorship, donations, scholarships from the university, as well as recently in other project, we are also thinking about energy cost offset program. If that's suitable for this particular community, we're happy to discuss on that as well. So happy to receive any feedback or comments or council ideas or even community ideas on this.
If I may suggest, we're happy to provide an initial draft of the PPA, so initial numbers as well.
Can I ask a question? Where does the funding come from that? Where does that money generated from? Where's that?
To come? It's a benefits of operating. It's a way to share the revenues that we obtain from operating. So it's a way to sort of share that with broader community, with near neighbors, etc. So it's part of our earnings, if you like.
How do you earnings?
Yes.
How do you earnings?
I think that it's been very clear from the comms that you've heard today is that the impacts aren't truly when the development comes operational. There is a hell of a lot of impact on communities during that construction phase.
Yes.
I would strongly encourage you to look at how your agreements are set out, especially during that construction phase, purely because we are a small organisation, and generally it's community. The first port of call that they'll come to is council. They won't come to your operator or yourselves. I find it a little bit hard to think that an initiative, once a proposal is operational, is where council has some role to play. But in that extreme construction phase where substantial impacts occur and the likelihood or risk of things going awry is high, that there is no contribution, there is no bond, there is no council engagement in that. Purely from me, I'm the operator of the council, and I find that a little bit difficult to grasp my head around. More than happy to see what a VPA looks like.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, there is no, I don't think our community is at a point in time where a VPA can be considered when there are a lot of other things that in this that I see, there is substantial unknowns. I think that you now understand the concerns that have been raised by council and what that looks like. I think that it's something that you can look at. You're nodding your heads. I think you understand where I'm coming from. I'm mindful of how you time and all this sort of stuff. But certainly that's one of the things that I see. The next thing is, how under a governance framework do you see something like this happening over the next 30 years? Do you see it? Because as an operator, we have to put some governance around something like this. And if an operator is going to provide council with an agreement or a fund, or what does that look like in terms of the expectation from the developer versus the expectation of an entire community, not just a neighbour who is already part of a benefits sharing scheme. This is your entire LJ. I think Councillor Hayden said it earlier. This affects a whole LJ. It's not just part or an adjoining owner that has an impact, because they've agreed, subject to some conditions that we don't see, to deal with that. It is the entirety of the community then that also has to deal with this from the outside. So I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard it, but I wanted to make it very clear that from my reading this, during construction phase, the neighbour's going to get a benefit, but that log truck driver who's had to wait 12 hours in his load through, there is no issue there where, there is no
recompense
or risk mitigator that says, well, council's going to do works on feeder roads that allow other traffic to go through there, or GPG are going to work with council to provide funds to help council offset. I call them feeder road impacts. And what our community do know is that if they're going to get hamstrung by the main road coming into town, where there's only a few, they are very good at finding feeder roads that are not the main road that they utilise. And it's the impacts on those feeder roads that council will be left with holding the can over. So in that process, I'm certainly keen to see where any operator, and I think councillors have heard me say this before, something along those lines during that construction phase that would give council some opportunity to consider. So leave that with you.
Yep.
I'll let council, is there any
and you
comments
won't
from
get a decision
council?
until you answer the submissions.
Yeah,
So,
that's,
Answer submissions, then we'll talk.
Of course.
So, I think something that's just important to lay out is just within the planning process, we're currently in the response to submissions phase of the process. And a lot of the issues that's been brought up has been brought up by council, community members. We haven't been able to respond to those because we haven't been able to lodge that.
Well, you're not going to get that until you answer the
Councillor,
community.
I appreciate it to not be interrupted in the middle of my sentence. Sorry. So we haven't been able to respond to that, and we understand that that is a concern, and we acknowledge that, and we are trying to work with council and with the community to try and engage, and that's why we are here today. That's why we've been reaching out to council to try and engage with council. We would like to continue doing that going forward. I think that's an important thing from our side to mention. But within that process, that planning process, it's also important to understand once we get approval after the assessment phase, if we get a approval that is linked to conditions of consent. And it's been mentioned a few times, but those conditions of consent require certain things to be done pre-construction. There's things that need to be done during construction. There's things that need to be done post-construction. We are bound by those conditions of consent. And there's part of that includes a number of management plans. So vegetation management plans, transport management plans. There's a whole number of management plans that we need to adhere to. But first, we need to draft them. And drafting of those management plans is done in collaboration with council, with the department. And so a lot of the issues that's been raised today, like the impacts of traffic and all of that, that's generally handled within that transport management plan. But we're not at that point yet. We can't draft a management plan if we don't have an approval yet. And so I just want to say that obviously we've started looking at those things and considering it, and we've done studies as far as possible in terms of what is required at the EIS phase, but there's things that still need to follow this within our planning process as well. And so council will certainly have an opportunity through the department and through all of that to have certain conditions that we need to comply with within that phase. So I think it's just important to highlight that as well.
And I don't think that council is unaware of that, but you want us to sign off on a VPA before you've done that. How is like you do understand the council issue in the statement that you've made. So we all acknowledge that.
Yeah,
and the council are great.
It will be ongoing.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of sum up, if you like. It seems like GPG have got quite a lot of work to do before they can think of asking for owner's consent. It seems to have done it the long way round to me. How can you possibly ask us to consent to something that you haven't told us all about? We need all the information to make the decision.
But equally, and I'm not here to take anyone's thunder, it is clear to my understanding that this is a thing that Transport for New South Wales has only just asked them to do.
I confirm that.
And that is, I'm not jumping in anyone's defence, but the piece there.
The submissions have
But
been
this
waiting for a year and a half.
this ends
Please
as a-
answer those.
Yeah. So, but equally, what GPG are saying, council, is that they'd love to respond to submissions, but they can't until such times as they have landowners' consent.
That's not exactly
all the
correct, because I've double checked that. I've double checked that. That's not true.
You can talk to the family.
Yes, please. I'll encourage you to speak to the
Councillor O'Connor, and to wrap up.
The mayor will wrap up. The mayor will wrap up. Thanks, General Manager. Thank you, GPG, for the closing statement. But I don't believe that you haven't listened to us all day, or for the last 2 hours. You haven't listened to the General Manager, you haven't listened to our Mayor, and you haven't listened to our councillors. The closing statement just reverted to the mean for you. And I have no confidence, given a company that has such deep understanding and investment throughout the world, that you've come into our community. I have no confidence in where this project's going for our community. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to say, Gary, that I have to actually go. And I know that there's a huge echo at the moment, so I don't think it's very appropriate that I say much more. Other than to say, I think we need a total proposal from GPG to understand the whole concept.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that that's probably a good point to leave it. I understand that, look, you know where you sit, and if you can provide us with those things to help give an understanding would be great. Look, on behalf of council, I do thank you for your attendance, and like with us, we'd love to continue that conversation as well. I'm sure councillors would agree with me.
Yeah.
If not, they'll let me know about it after you walk out the door. But equally, there are some real challenges in this community, and you've heard what we believe those challenges are. Our councillors have made it very clear the concerns that they have, and their voice is that of the community. So please take it for what it is. Look at the transcript and respond to the questions that have been asked, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the near future. So,
And thank you to Councillor Tremblay for setting the meeting.
thank you, councillors, for your attendance, and those watching online. Thank you, councillors, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, that was-